Welcome to Keeping It Real with Real Light. Today's guest is Kayla Austin, founder of My Guns Been Moved. She's a student, young entrepreneur, and Cranbrook alum attending Howard University in Washington, D.C. Kayla is one of AT&T's 25 Dream in Black Rising Future Makers for their inaugural cohort. Further, the National Urban League has identified her as a future Black History Maker in 2022. And most recently, she was announced as a finalist for Pharrell Williams' prestigious Black Ambition Prize. Wow, Kayla, you're well accomplished. Would you mind just talking about your journey and process of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I've had a very long journey. So, a little bit about me is I'm currently at Howard University studying TV and film. I'm from Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is like a west suburb of Chicago. And then I also went to Cranbrook for high school, where I'm glad we were able to have that connection. So, since then, I was like, since I was about 12, I've just been actually since I was like 5, my mom had me in Girl Scouts and different like community service orgs. So, service and giving back to my community was always something at the top of my mind when I was younger. And when I was 12, I did a research project where I was studying gun violence against youth. And that led me to founding my startup called My Guns and Youth. So that's like the little rundown.
What kind of community were you raised in, and how would you classify your upbringing?
Yeah, I would say I had a really good upbringing. I grew up having two older siblings that were way older than me. So I was kind of an only child in a way. And so my mom made it her mission to just have me surrounded by other people at all times and being a part of different organizations in my community. So I was a part of Jack and Jill of America throughout my childhood, Girl Scouts, of course. I'm trying to think of what else. My mom just always had me in programs and different activities where I could just be around other people, and that's really where a lot of my energy would come from. Um, so yeah, I also grew up, I would say, in a very diverse community, which I didn't really realize was that diverse until I left. Like my next door neighbors, their mom was from Mexico, their father was from Lebanon, and I grew up like going to their house a lot, and they also were Muslim. So I grew up at a very young age, like understanding different religions, different cultures, trying different foods. And so I would say that my next door neighbors, like that family played a huge role in just like how I view the world and being accepting of new ideas and different cultures too.
I understand you're a film major. Where did your passion for photography come from?
Growing up, my dad was a wedding photographer on the weekends, so I would sometimes like help him set his equipment up and take like test photos for him. So I grew up like always being around cameras, and I would say my passion for cameras really started off in video. Like I was just a Disney kid. I was always watching Disney Channel. I wanted to find ways to mimic what I was seeing on screen. So I would like force all the kids on my street. I got an iPod Touch and found iMovie. So I would force all the kids on my street to act in like my little skits and films when I was like 8 years old. So that was how I got started off into video and just editing. And I've always been someone that was very creative. So like every day when I came back home from school, I would go straight to my mom's office, grab her printer paper, and either try to draw something or like make a contraption out of paper. My mom would get so annoyed because I would take all of her printer paper. Um, but like creating was always something that I enjoyed doing. And I think that was part of the reason why I also chose to go to Cranbrook because it was very fine arts focused and has a deep history within the art space. So that was kind of how my creative side developed, I would say, and why I'm a film major. I've just always been interested in film, cameras, video, working with other people.
Let's talk about My Gun's Been Moved. For any viewer who may not know, would you mind giving us a description of what My Guns Moved is and how it helps people?
That really came about, as I mentioned, when I was 12. I was a part of this program. It was called Junior AXO that my mom had actually forced me to be in. And I did not want to be in it at the time. But in this program, it was me and two of my friends. We were tasked to find a real problem of our choice and then research it, study it for 7 months, and then try to come up with like our own community based solutions. And so while doing that, I'm like, we're literally from the Chicago area. Like, why don't we focus on gun violence, but specifically against children and teens? And so through that, I thought I was going to learn about like mass shootings, school shootings, like things of that sort. But what I came to find out was that a lot of shootings involving children and teens are accidents happening from finding a parent's gun in the home. And so with me being Gen Z, I'm like, why is there no technology in this space? Like if we can find my iPhone, if we can track all these different objects, why can't we track something that is a life or death object, you know? So that was really how that idea came about. And when I was 13, I made like the first design of it, and I had a patent pending. I had like a lawyer who was willing to go pro bono with me. And so throughout the years, like after doing more customer discovery, the design of it has completely changed. Like the updated design is on our website now. So I'm really excited to be moving forward with that, and even having like the support of Pharrell and his organization. It's been a crazy couple of years, but that was really how that journey started.
Wow, you've got a bright future with My Gun's Been Moved. What did you learn from Cranbrook that may have helped your future in what it is now?
Yeah, so for me, it's interesting. So my parents are actually both like electrical engineers, and I just had no interest in STEM. Like they tried everything to put me in like science camps. I was putting like the Mentos and Coca-Cola and watching the explosions and stuff like that. I was just doing all types of like STEM related things. And I was always more pulled to the creative side. But my mind, I feel like technology is definitely always on my mind as someone that like grew up having an iPhone and just being on social media and stuff like that. So I feel like technology for our generation, we just always have to be aware of it. And I definitely was at a young age. However, I was never really interested in like having a career field in STEM. So I would describe myself as like more of the ideator, more than like the executor when it comes to like building things. Um, so yeah, I would describe that as my relationship with STEM. But having parents that were engineers, like they always made sure I was just aware of technology, and just how important it is too.
Have you come to appreciate your parents putting you in the camps and programs that you may have not have looked forward to but ended up paying off in the long run?
Yes, absolutely. I think like just my parents like putting me in different camps and programs and stuff, it really did allow me to be comfortable trying new things, and also like being okay with sometimes letting things go. Like I played basketball for my whole life. I have an aunt. Most people don't know this, but my aunt was a former WNBA player, and she was like the first woman to dunk blindfolded. So basketball was like a huge part of my life. And so my parents always made sure, like outside of basketball, that I was doing these different programs and camps to like meet new people. And I was like, I had my own little community in my little town. So a lot of us, like our parents, would just have us doing different things, and I definitely am grateful for it. Even though at the time, I was just like, I just want to have a Saturday to myself, but it definitely paid off.
For any viewer who may not be familiar, would you mind giving us a description of your product with My Gun's Been Moved?
Yeah, so for My Gun to Move, we use media, technology, and education to reduce gun violence against children and teens. And so our product is the Smart Pad that gives parents a way to have their weapons be accessible, but it also gives them a way to monitor their weapon through their phone. So if their child removes a firearm in the household, our users notified through their phone, and from there they can either call an emergency contact, which could be like a spouse, someone else in the home, or even like law enforcement as well. So we're pre-market right now. We're about to start crowdfunding so we can make that possible, but that's where we're at right now, and that's the product.
In your involvement
Mhm.
with developing My Gun's Been Moved, did you have a role model or mentor that helped guide you along the way?
Yeah, I would say I've had a lot of mentors, and I think like even being an entrepreneur of mentorship is so important. I think especially being young. I would say my mom has been a huge part of just like my journey this far, but outside of her, because I feel like everyone says their inspiration is their mom. And outside of my mom, I would say living in the Chicago area, I grew up being very involved with Rainbow Push, which is Reverend Jesse Jackson's initiative. So having him like in my back corner, as well as I'm trying to think, I've had so many mentors, and I think especially with Black Ambition, part of Black Ambition is like getting mentorship. So in my first, I think when I first like really got into the program, I had like a mentorship pod where I had someone who she's had her own startups before, but she was actually in the fashion technology space, but she was able to pour into me a lot. And I think even being around just the other founders, there are about 30 of us that were actual prize winners. We're a really tight knit group. But I know that like I can go out to them to ask questions. Like even as I'm crowdfunding, some of them have done crowdfunding before, like learning what works for them, what didn't work for them, being able to pull that in, I think has been a really important part of my success. Just being able to ask questions, and like keeping curiosity. I think that that has been helpful in my journey so far.
What would you say inspired you to invent a solution for the issues surrounding gun safety?
Yeah, so I think what really stuck out to me and like wanting to find a solution was that I realized a lot of situations involving children and teens are like they're preventable. So it'll be like 3 to 4 year olds. It's kind of like if parents had the ability to monitor their firearm if they were storing it safely, like the situation could have been prevented and someone's life could have been saved or even someone could have just not been injured. And then when I was doing this research project in the seventh grade, I found out that I actually had a family friend who, when she was around 4 years old, she shot herself in the hand with her grandfather's gun. And so after hearing that, I started to realize like just how common it is, and like you never know who's been impacted. Someone that was in my life like really early on, I had never known that that had happened to her. So hearing her story and realizing that like those situations happen 8 times every single day, and I honestly think that after COVID-19, not COVID, yeah, after COVID-19, I think those numbers actually increased as more people were just home, more children were home. I think really knowing that the situations could have been prevented was really, and seeing that I had a family member who was impacted is really what inspired me and made me want to push even harder.
On social media, I've noticed that you've been vocal about your internship in 2022 Rocket Mortgage and your current internship at Chanel. For the student viewers out there who might be curious, what was the biggest takeaway as an intern at both Rocket Mortgage and Chanel?
Yeah, I would say so for Rocket Mortgage at Cranbrook, we have like our senior May project. And so I actually, working at Rocket Mortgage was my senior May project. And so I worked there for the month of May on like the university recruiting team. I think towards the end, they were like, do you want to actually like work for the whole summer? So that was my first internship at 17 years old, which looking back is kind of crazy. I think I was their youngest. I might have been their youngest intern ever to be like to work in the summer. But that experience taught me that like the importance of connecting with people. So, believe it or not, I grew up very introverted. I still kind of like in my nature, I am very like to myself, sometimes a little shy. And so at Rocket, I would say amongst the interns, I really encourage you to meet with whoever you want to meet with across the company. So like Rocket owns the Cavaliers, and my manager was like, go on like the company directory. If you see someone that looks interesting to you, like go meet with them. And I was like, oh, that sounds a little, I don't know if I want to, if I'm, I'm 17. Who wants to talk to a 17-year-old in the middle of their workday? And she would just like do it. Like, that's what these people are here for. Like, they want to meet interns. And then she also, I think my first day, my manager asked me, like, what all my interests were. And she made a list of all the people in those different fields that were like in the rocket like world and just set up meetings for me. So I remember when I was kind of building out my guns and move, but not as intensely my senior year. But I wanted to learn more about people in the startup space. And so I still am really into sneakers and streetwear. And so I saw that one of the founders of StockX was on like the directory. So I emailed him and I was like, hi, like, I love sneakers. I went to Cranbrook and I would love to get time on your calendar if you have the availability. And he was like, okay, like, come on. And so he was actually, I think at that time, he served like as like their head of marketing. So he was involved in like their photo shoots, the creative process. So I got to learn about that. He told me like how StockX got started and like their startup journey. And so now I've had him in my corner since I was like 17, just because Rocket like encouraged me to just go and do that. And then I think I had also reached out to someone at the Cleveland Cavaliers because I was interested in basketball, who was the head of communications. So he like handled all the photographers, social media, and I was interested in that. So me and him, I think he just moved to DC, so we're still friends. So Rocket really taught me the importance of connecting and the importance of just like even if it feels uncomfortable to reach out to someone, just do it because you never know what can happen. And I would say that I've taken that learning. Like I learned that at 17. I've definitely taken that into everything I do, especially as an entrepreneur. It's all about building your network and surrounding yourself with the right people. And that was really long. I'm answering this question very like lengthy. Um, but I would say with Chanel, I feel like I continued like upon building relationships, and that's what kind of made me successful at Chanel. But I would say my biggest takeaway from that. Well, I just had my last day like 2 days ago, so I'm still figuring out what the big takeaway was. But I would definitely say building relationships is important, and just being genuine is also important in the workspace. So yeah, Chanel has been absolutely an incredible experience. Oh my gosh. So
You've emphasized networking with your internships. Did you ever expect to get those welcoming responses from, example, the founder of StockX?
Honestly, no. Well, when I for the first couple people that I had reached out to, I was like, I don't know. When I reached out to the StockX founder, I was like, he might not respond, but like, I'm glad that I'm doing this. But you just have to be okay with hearing a no, and I think that it is hard. For me, it's still hard to get no's, but it's like I'd rather get a no than to know that I didn't even go for it at all, and it could have been a yes. So that's been my mindset and things, but I'd say if it feels uncomfortable for you, that means that you're most likely doing the right thing.
I know this might be a tough question as you're still in college, but what's the best and worst advice you have ever received?
I would say some of the best advice that I've been given has been to network across. Like, I think, especially when we're young, our first thing is like, oh, I want to immediately talk to the CEO or the founder. And like, I'm not making the best case for this. I just talked about how I reached out to a founder. But I do think that when we're younger, like we oftentimes think we need to go up to like the highest person to get opportunities. But a lot of times, some of the best opportunities for me have come from like people that I'm sitting in a classroom with or that I'm in an organization with. So being focused on developing those relationships, I think especially as a film major, a lot of us or a lot of film majors kind of feel like, oh, I need to meet someone who's in the industry who works at a production house to like get something. But a lot of like those projects that we started out with come from working on like classmates projects. So it's important to it's important to really like soak up the relationships that you have with the people that are next to you, I think. And a lot of opportunities I've gotten have come from that. Even like I recently did a video project, or last year I did a video project from with Instagram that was on their page and I had like 15 million views. And that opportunity came from my friend that I had at Howard who I guess had been working with Instagram. So it really is about like surrounding yourself with good people and just focusing on who's around you first before you try to meet new people because you never know who you're sitting next to. And then I would say like some bad advice I've been given. This isn't necessarily bad, and it's kind of like you have to find the middle part of this. But I feel like at some point I was told, okay, you have to focus on solely one thing and let that be your thing, and so you can master it and just only focus on that, and you'll go far. And I think to a certain extent, like that is very true. But I also think it is important to try new things and not just be doing one thing at all times because you never know when that ball might drop. And I think for me, my interests are everywhere, like in photography in the startup space. And I think that I've been a little bit successful because I've been able to say yes to some things. I'm learning to say no, but being able to say yes and keep my options open, I think has allowed me to flourish in the different areas that I'm in.
Looking back and seeing that 13-year-old working on your product and developing what you're doing, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
To not be shy. Like I always had the biggest ideas, but when it came to like sharing them with other people, I still am kind of I struggle sometimes with just being not I don't want to say being humble is always a great thing, but sometimes I'm like a little bit too humble to where I just don't want to talk about myself. And I think at 13, I'll probably tell myself like, don't be afraid to talk about yourself more and let people know who you are. Um, I think that that would probably be the biggest thing, especially with me being shy. I'll just be like, girl, it's not that deep. Just say what you want to say. Don't be afraid. Don't let anyone make you feel smaller. Just go ahead and do it. I think that's what I would say to my 13-year-old self.
So, Kayla, what comes next in your life? What are you looking forward to the most?
I'm really looking forward to graduating from Howard. I have like 2 more years left, so like I have some time left, but I'm really excited to be able to say that I would be an alum of Howard. Um, and what happens next? I guess we'll just see. Hopefully, the plan is to get my guns and moved on the market in the next couple months. So there will be that, and then a crowdfunding campaign happening. And then we're also having a My Guns and Mood podcast, like interviewing different activists and like people who have been in the space or had their own situations with their families or they've been victims themselves. So I'm excited to use media to amplify those stories because, as I mentioned, like I've always been within like film, video. So I'm excited to enter that space through my company. Um, so yeah, I was like, those are the most immediate things to look out for.
Why Howard?
Yeah, so Howard. I was between choosing Howard and NYU actually. And I have my mom, she's an alum of Howard's graduate school. And so initially I was like, I don't want to go there just because my mom went there. But when I talked to Howard students, I had some people from my hometown that went to Howard. Howard was the only school with students who I was able to talk to who told me that they did not regret their decision, that they were happy, and that it was the best thing they had ever done for themselves. And so when I thought about my college experience, I was like, okay, I don't want to choose somewhere where I know that I could possibly regret it. Like, and Howard seems to have the students where they are the happiest. And in high school at Cranbrook, I was so stressed all the time. Like we know Cranbrook is a lot of work. I was so stressed all the time. I'm like, I need to go somewhere where I can know that I will have like good academics, but I will also be able to do many of the things that I like to do outside of class, like including being creative, including my guns and moves. So, and the Howard Alumni Network is so strong. Everyone that goes there is extremely proud. And I feel like Howard is also always in the room. Like when I go to different corporate settings or events, like there's always someone from Howard who was there who was able to do our chant in public. So I'd say that that was really why I chose it, and really just the community, the students there have been super supportive. Even like as I was going through the Black Ambition process, my classmates and like the alumni, the professors, everyone has played a large role in my success thus far.
How have you been leveraging your social channels and your social media to advance My Gun's Been Moved in all of your projects?
Social media has played a large role in my Guns and Moves success this far. I think mostly primarily from like my own personal page. I've been able to do a lot of press within this past year. So like we were in Teen Vogue, ABC7 Chicago, the Washington Post did an article on my Guns and Move, many more. I'm forgetting a lot of things, but I think through having that press and even just having them post about my Guns and Move has played a large role in like us building our following as well. And I totally forgot to mention we were also exhibitors at CES in January, which is the largest tech conference in the world. We were invited to have a booth there. And so I was also able to grow like our newsletter and grow our network out there. So that was also like a channel that allowed me to grow the amount of people that have access to my Guns and Move, just the stuff that we're doing. But social media, Instagram, I'm really starting to explore through that newsletter. I would say it's played a big role in what we've been doing so far.
With artificial intelligence on the rise, there's ChatGPT, Luna AI, several other AI platforms. How is artificial intelligence going to impact what you're doing?
Yeah, that's something I'm definitely still exploring. I know like my team and I sometimes we use AI when it comes to like what type of content we want to post. Or we recently added 30 ambassadors to the team that will be primarily helping with like social media content and events. And like I remember I used AI like what is the best way to use like ambassadors for your brand, and like it gave me all of these really cool deliverables. So I really do enjoy using AI in like a very practical way. But in regards to like our technology, I am curious to see if there is a way that that could be implemented into like the smart pad. um, I would love to talk to you more about that. But I would say in that regard, like AI has been cool when it comes to using it in a practical way. But I'm definitely trying to figure out ways to implement it into more of what we're doing.
Thank you, Kayla. It's been a great conversation. What I learned from today's interview is to take what you want and be curious and confident with what you're passionate about. Thanks for watching Keeping It Real with Real Light. I'm Sienna.